Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Eliza and today I have a stack of books that I've recently gotten that I wanted to show you. I told you it was a stack. I got most of these on my recent little solo trip to the Southern Highlands, and it was really beautiful around there with a lot of cute bookshops, especially in Bowral. First up, we have a contemporary and historical fiction book, which is Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. This was released in 2023 and has a 3.9 out of 5 average rating on Goodreads. It's the story of a woman who invites her 3 fully grown daughters to a cherry picking farm where she tells them the story about when she was younger and was in love with a man who went on to be a famous film star. Not gonna lie, I have a big ick about cherries. I don't like them. I think they look weird. I would not have bought this novel if they were on the cover. No. Since it's labelled contemporary, literary and historical, I'm guessing we get the 2 timelines of the present compared to the mum reminiscing about her life, previous stages in life. I'm yet to become a converted literary fiction reader, but I've heard great things about this. This next one I'm maybe the most excited about because I have been waiting for it for months. I pre-ordered it months ago, not realizing that it hadn't been released in Australia yet, that we got it a few months after everyone else. My pre-order didn't arrive for a whole extra month after it was meant to, which was a real shame because I was kind of in a reading slump and I was like, this is exactly what I feel like reading right now, and it wasn't there. And then I was in a tiny little bookshop in Bowral, which is a country town in Australia. It's not far out of Sydney, but it's also not in a city or anything. And lo and behold, they had this book on the front table, so I cancelled my pre-order and picked this one up very excitedly, and I think it will be the next book that I read, and it is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fato. This is short, only about 200 pages, and it has a 3.6 star rating on Goodreads. The genres are historical fiction, thriller, mystery, horror, and gothic. I don't read much horror, but I think it's very much going to be in the femme-gore category, the female rage category, which I don't think I've really read any of, none that's really overt. It's set in Victorian England and it's about a woman who becomes a governess for a wealthy family and seems to have a lot of rage bubbling under the surface of decorum, whether creeping across the moonlit lawns in her undergarments or gently tormenting the house staff. Winifred struggles at every turn to stifle the horrid compulsions of her past. That is until her chillingly dark imagination breaks the feeble boundary of reality one Christmas morning. It's giving Die Hard, but make it Victorian. Christmas time. Since I was in a reading slump, I kind of felt like there were 2 main camps of what I felt like reading. One was more dark thriller, mystery type books, and on the other end of the pendulum was cutesy, animal, cottagecore, peak cozy fantasy, classic version. And by that I mean a book that I bought that I had not been thinking of buying or anything, but I went, it's too beautiful not to, and it is Bramley Hedge. Bramley Hedge is a series of children's books about these cute little field mice going about their sweet seasonal adventures, and it came out in the 1980s and is recommended for 3 to 7-year-olds. I do not fit in that spectrum of age, but my heart, when I looked at the illustrations, leapt with joy. I had to get it. I mean, look, the cross sections of the houses. Does this not just make you feel like soothed? Oh, okay, side note, I hate dust jackets. I really don't get it, especially when it looks the exact same underneath or better. Why? Why would you? I know they serve a function, but I think it's stupid. immediately my nervous system is regulating better than previously. Thanks, Jill Barklam, for creating this. I didn't grow up with it either, but I definitely recognize the illustrations and everything. Next, I have some secondhand books that I bought from the Phoenix bookstore in Bowral. It was beautiful in there. I bought 2 Beatrix Potter books, the cute little ones. One was The Tale of Timmy Tiptoes, and the other was The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. I already have the Tailor of Gloucester in the same kind of little small version. I read The Tale of Timmy Tiptoes the other day, and it was interesting. It was really cute and funny, but also kind of a little wacko. Like, this chipmunk kept this squirrel contained, locked him up basically. From there, I also got 2 other books, one for myself and one for my friends who I was staying with for a few days in Canberra. The other animalish book that I bought for myself was The Wind in the Willows. Look how lovely these illustrations are, including on the back as well. And I love a map. Any map in a little fantasy book. The Wind in the Willows was originally published in 1908, but this one is from 1971, which is pretty amazing. The Wind in the Willows details the story of Ratty, Badger and Mole as they try to help Mr. Toad, who always gets into some chaotic trouble. Think friendship, picnics, and a toad who you can't contain his love of motor cars. If you're around my age, you might have vague memories of the Wind in the Willows animated movie. Toad, I found him funny, but also I think he scared me a little because he was very chaotic and kind of like overwhelming. And there was some kind of scary parts, if I remember correctly, from that, but I literally haven't watched that for like 25 years. So maybe it's time. And also going back to the Beatrix Potter, oh my gosh, I have such fond, lovely memories of the animated TV series where each episode was a different one of her stories, and it had the beautiful intro of live action Beatrix Potter walking around with her dog painting, and then the rain comes and then they're rushing home and putting on some tea and she pats Peter Rabbit, and it goes into the animated bit, and it was just kids these days don't know because it was so beautiful, and now they have Coco Melon. Anyway, that's a different story. That's a different point completely. The other book that I got, which was for my friends, which I also spotted at the Phoenix bookshop, was Romeo and Juliet. Now, my friend Sarah loves some theatre and Shakespeare and is also obsessed with cats, and her and her husband, their cat looks like Romeo. So you can imagine when I found this book, I was laughing my socks off, and I had to buy it for them, and I had a little peek and it was hilarious. The pictures inside were amazing. I was so overcome by this find that I didn't even realize the author was named Eliza as well. It's a perfectly punny retelling of Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, but this time the star-crossed lovers take feline form, and of course it ends in catastrophe. It was so funny I had to look up if there were others, and there are others in the series called The Great Gatsby, Pugs and Prejudice, and The Picture of Dorian Greyhound. Around that time, I also stopped at a street library that I happened to drive past in Bowral. There was a book that was right in the front that caught my eye because it was so beautiful, and I picked it up because it sounded really good too. How beautiful are they? Like, seriously, that's art just by itself. I have a feeling this might have been part of a book box or a subscription of some sort because it's clearly a special edition, and it was a new release as of last year. And this book is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. The front is just as gorgeous. The genres of this are fantasy, mythology, historical fiction, and retelling of mythology. And look at the inside. I want to be her. A mother and a son, a goddess and a prince, a curse and an oath. a river whose course will change the fate of the world. A powerful reimagining of the story of Ganga, goddess of the river, and her doomed mortal son, from Vaishnavi Patel, author of the instant New York Times bestseller, I'm sorry, I can't remember how to pronounce this correctly. I remember seeing that book advertised and it being raved about, and I haven't read it yet. But this one also is from the same author, so it sounds interesting. I like reading about immortals, especially when the market is almost oversaturated by Greek myth retellings, which I also, in theory, love, though I don't always love the execution of them. I think it's important that we have some that aren't just Greek mythology retellings, and there's some diversity out there, because there's not always. These last three I picked up in the same day from street libraries. And if you watched my book buying ban video, you would know that I'm only meant to pick up one street book library a week as a maximum. We won't get into that here, but I will talk about that later with some updates of how it's been going. Yeah, as you can see by my book haul. Just keeping it real. One of the books I picked up was this super cute Blinky Bill. If you don't know about Blinky Bill, it probably means you're not Australian, because he is an icon. He is a koala, not a koala bear. The story of Blinky Bill was first published in 1933 by author and illustrator Dorothy Wall, and it has been made and remade into TV shows and movies, and I don't even know how many books there are, but I grew up watching some of the TV show, though I've never read any of the books. And they are about a mischievous koala called Blinky Bill, who gets into quite a bit of strife and trouble. Like several of the books in this haul, this was made for children, so it's not going to be a challenging read by any means. But I think it's okay for adults to read children's books, because it makes you feel like a kid again, gets your imagination flowing, and it's fun. This next book I'd never seen or heard about, and I did look up online the other books in the series, because apparently it's the first in a trilogy, and they have really ugly covers, real ugly. This one is not. This one is beautiful, and it is called Talon by Janet Lee Carey. I love me a dragon. Don't talk to me about Fourth Wing though, because I'm not talking those kind of dragons. I'm talking like dragonology dragons. This young adult adventure fantasy book was published in 2007 and is the story of a young hero, a legendary dragon, and a kingdom worth fighting for. A hidden island, a cursed beauty, a monstrous secret. Rose is the 21st princess of Wild Island, prophesied to restore peace between England and her exiled people, but her beauty masks a hideous beast mark that will have her burned as a witch if it is ever discovered. Kidnapped by the bloodthirsty dragon Lord Fowl, Rose begins to unravel the horrifying truth about her curse. Murder, sorcery, betrayal. Will she outwit the dragon and live to fulfill the ancient prophecy? A feisty fairy tale for 21st century readers. I thought it sounded pretty cool. Like, there's murder, there's dragons, there's prophecy, there's curses. It sounds very fantasy and reminds me of Shrek. It kind of makes me think of Fiona and the dragon, although I know the dragon in Shrek's a girl. But the beast mark, hiding a curse, burned as a witch, all this stuff. What am I going to do if I like it and want to keep reading with the very ugly editions? What will I do? My final book on this list is one that you probably would have seen if you've been paying attention to any of the popular books that have been around in the last 5 years. And it is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett, published in 2020. This is a coming-of-age historical novel. It's about twin sisters who take two very different paths in life because of their circumstances and their choices. They grow up together in a small southern black community in America, but one of the sisters passes as white and separates herself from the family and goes on to live a very different life from her sister who remains, is my understanding at least anyway. And The Vanishing Half is about one of the sisters who disappears, who vanishes, half of the twins. We get the story over time as well, where we see decades later the repercussions and echoes, I guess, of their choices on their families and their connection to each other. I don't know the exact circumstances because I haven't read it yet and I didn't really want to spoil any more for myself than that. But I find that concept of white passing really interesting, and it brings up a whole thing about colorism and all these things, and racism, obviously. I feel like it's going to be confronting and rough in some ways, but also I've heard it's beautiful and very worthwhile to read. I'm glad I got my hands on it because now when it's on my shelf, I'll actually remember that I want to read it, as opposed to it being sat in a list of many, many, many books online, not being tangible. That's my very little most recent haul. Oh wait, I forgot one. That's my most recent haul. We won't talk about the book buying ban now. We'll talk about it another time. But for now, please let me know if you've read any of these or which one you would be most excited to read or have on your TBR list. Thanks for joining me for another video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.